Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. What would you do if a ridiculous HOA put an illegal electric fence around your farm property, which ended up in you almost dying? Let's dive right into the story to find out what happened. My family has owned a small 300-acre farm for generations. Because of how long it existed, there's been a lot of development around the area, including new neighborhoods and small shopping centers, but the farmland has always remained untouched. When I was old enough, my grandparents promised it to me in their will, and I took ownership of it when I was 27. The farmland is separated into 4 sections. 3 of those sections are for crops, mainly corn and soybeans, while the other section is for the family's personal use, which includes a house and livestock, aka chickens, rabbits, and even ducks. This last section is the closest to the more developed portion of the area, as it is about a quarter mile away from the nearest neighborhood. This neighborhood, which I learned about a year ago, had an HOA, and apparently that HOA hated the fact that they were near a farm. My grandparents had not had any issues with the local neighborhood HOA, so I did not know that they had a problem until there was a knock on my door. I answered it, and an older woman who looked like she had sucked on a lemon before arriving at my home stood there, hands on her hips. I'm calling her Karen because, well, you know. I don't remember the exact conversation, but I was polite while she seemed to be agitated with every comment I made. Karen asked me if I was the owner of the property, and I told her yes. She proceeded to tell me that my property and farm are an eyesore to her neighborhood and was driving the property value of the surrounding neighborhoods down. I told her that this farm has probably been around for longer than the neighborhoods have, and that if she had an issue with it, she was free to move somewhere else where there was not a farm nearby. She insisted that I had to do something about the eyesore she had to drive by every day, and I told her that there really wasn't much I could do. So then she left, huffing and puffing. It was a weird interaction, but I just figured she was someone who was new to the area and had not known about the farm to begin with. Then I started getting letters in my mailbox from an HOA for the neighborhood closest to me, which was literally a quarter mile down the road and not directly next to my property. The land in between my property and the neighborhood was owned by the township, so I could not do anything about that strip of land either. The letter started out cordially enough, just letting me know that I should be taking better care of my property in order for those in the HOA to feel proud of the neighborhood they were in. Again, it was not like my farm was bordering the neighborhood, and I kept my farm looking nice year-round. Well, winter might be the exception, but dry grass is everywhere during that time anyway. Then I received a letter of complaint about my animals, and again from the same HOA claiming that they were making too much noise. I don't own a rooster, so there wasn't any risk of something crowing loudly enough to be heard a quarter mile away. The rabbits didn't make loud noises to be disruptive, and the ducks I had did not make that much noise to carry such a long distance. I figured whoever was sending these letters was just trying to make a fuss, so I ignored them, but I kept each of the letters just in case there was any escalation. The third letter I got was a threat of legal action against me. The letter did not specify exactly what I did, or if there was something on my property that someone at the HOA didn't agree with. It was just a vague threat, and again, I ignored it. I kept getting letters, sometimes 2 a day, over the course of the next 2 weeks after Karen had visited. I assumed she was the one sending them, or I'd gotten someone on the HOA board to send them on her behalf, but I figured that if I ignored them, then she would get tired and leave me alone. Well, suffice to say, the letters did not stop, and I ended up just piling them up and not reading them after a certain point. I figured they were just saying the same thing over and over, and I didn't want to stress myself out about it. Well, one afternoon, I had to run out to grab a bunch of supplies for my animals. It took me most of the afternoon and into the evening to get everything, so it was getting dark when I headed home. The road my house is on is at a bit of a curve, so I'm usually going pretty fast when I'm turning into my driveway. When I turned that night, there was an explosion of light before my eyes, and then everything went dark. The next thing I remember, I was waking up in the hospital. The doctors told me that I'd been unconscious for almost a day. They had gone through some preliminary tests to see the full extent of what happened to me, but I had a concussion, 2 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and a sprained wrist. They told me that if I had not been wearing my seatbelt, I would have gone through the windshield and either landed on the hood of my car or on the fence. The fence part was what confused me. I did not have a fence that close to the road on my property, and if there was something there, I would have seen it when I was turning in, but I didn't. The fact that this fence was over my driveway was also concerning, and it didn't explain what the bright light I saw before I lost consciousness was. I got more details from my wife when she came to visit me, and the doctors having called her to let her know I was awake. She had no clue where the fence had come from, but someone had erected a shoddily made electric fence around part of the farm property. She had called the police after the ambulance came to make sure it was taken down safely. She had heard from the doctors when I was admitted that because the fence had been turned on when I hit it, if my body had come into contact with it before my car broke though, I probably would have died. That revelation scared me. Who would have done something so dangerous and why? I ended up staying in the hospital for a little over a month before I was discharged. The doctors kept commending me for wearing a seatbelt since that made sure I got out of my accident with minimal injuries. My wrist turned out to be broken, so I had surgery and a cast put on before I left the hospital. I got home to find that my wife had gone through all of the HOA letters. There were a whole bunch of new ones from the month I was in the hospital too. She wanted to show me one in particular and then wanted me to make a decision. The letter was sent the day before my accident, hinting that if I didn't reply to any of the letters that had been sent to me, the HOA would take proper measures to make sure that me and my animals did not make their way into the neighborhood. It was a vague threat, but it would explain the fence. My wife sat me down and told me that she feared for her safety and had police looking into who made this fence, but she wanted me to be the one to decide if we point a finger at the HOA, since my life was the one in danger. I agreed with her and called the police. I gave them everything I had from the HOA and told them about the confrontation that I had with Karen. They advised me to have a lawyer ready just in case they find anything that they could officially charge her with, or if they found the person who set up this fence without our knowledge. I thought the month in the hospital was a grueling experience. The legal process took much longer and was worse waiting-wise. In the end though, it was discovered that Karen had been the one to purchase the fence, and they found out she had hired someone off the books to set it up in hopes that she would not get caught. Karen was also the one who sent each of the letters and made the excuse that she was doing a public service for her neighborhood and the surrounding area. We took her to court and she was charged with reckless endangerment since the fence was put up over my driveway, trespassing and harassment. She and the guy she hired to put up the fence ended up in jail. Every year that goes by after that whole thing makes me thankful that I'm even able to type this today. A part of me still cannot believe what happened and how something as petty as not liking my property caused another person to literally almost kill me. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed this story and prefer human readers over robot readers, then please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support me, because that would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. The next one is an amazing HOA Am I the A-hole story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, Am I the jerk for publicly humiliating an HOA board member who destroyed my Canadian flag? So I'm a Canadian immigrant who came to the United States for work about 8 years ago, and while I love living here, I still feel connected to my home country. I fly a Canadian flag around major Canadian holidays like Canada Day, July 1st and Remembrance Day, November 11th. For the first 2 years I lived here, there were never any issues with my flag, nobody complained, and a few neighbors even commented positively about it, asking questions about Canada or telling me about their vacations to Montreal or Vancouver. Everything changed last year when the HOA board had elections and several new members joined. Among them was this middle-aged woman who I will call Karen, not her real name obviously. From day one, she seemed to take her position way too seriously, walking around the neighborhood with a clipboard and taking notes about the tiniest infractions. The trouble started when I put up my Canadian flag for Canada Day. It was a standard-sized flag on a pole attached to my front porch, nothing excessive or against any rules I was aware of. 3 days after I put it up, I received a letter in my mailbox from the HOA stating that non-American flags are not permitted to be displayed without prior approval. I immediately checked the HOA regulations and found nothing specifically prohibiting foreign flags. By the way guys, I was thinking of flying a Dexter and Disney flag in front of my house in Thailand. I'm curious if that flag would be HOA approved or not. But honestly, If the HOA would discriminate against my fur babies, I would probably tell them to pound sand or do even worse things. Anyway, there was a section about flags in general that mentioned that they should be in good condition and displayed respectfully, but nothing stating that approval was needed for non-American flags. I wrote a polite email to the HOA board explaining that I could not find this rule in the regulations and asking for clarification. There was no response, and I called the property management company that runs the HOA, but they just said that they would pass on my concerns to the board. A week later, I received another letter, this one threatening a $100 fine if the flag was not removed within 48 hours. Well, now I was getting annoyed. I took down the flag temporarily while I tried to sort this out, but I was not giving up. I decided to attend the next HOA meeting to address this directly. These meetings were usually poorly attended with maybe 10 people out of hundreds of homeowners showing up. When I arrived, I found the board members sitting at a table at the front of the room, including Karen, who gave me a smug look when I walked in. During the open forum section, I stood up and addressed the board. I would like to discuss the recent letters I've received about my Canadian flag. I've reviewed the HOA regulations thoroughly, and I cannot find any rule prohibiting foreign flags or requiring approval for them. Could someone here point me to where this rule exists? The board president, an older man who seemed reasonable, looked confused. I'm not aware of any such rule. Let me check. He flipped through a binder of regulations and then conferred quietly with the other board members. Finally, he said, "You're right. There's no specific rule about foreign flags. As long as it is displayed properly and in good condition, there should not be an issue." I was relieved, but then Karen spoke up. "We cannot have people displaying whatever flags they want. What's next? Flags with offensive symbols? Political flags? Religious flags?" "It's a Canadian flag," I said. "It is hardly offensive or controversial." The board president nodded. "I agree. Unless we vote to change the regulations, there's no basis for prohibiting a Canadian flag." Karen was clearly unhappy, but outvoted by the rest of the board. The president apologized for the confusion, and I thought that was the end of it. I put my flag back up, but feeling like I'd won a small victory for common sense. But the story does not end there. About a week later, I noticed Karen walking past my house multiple times a day, always giving the flag dirty looks. She even took pictures of it once. I tried to ignore her, figuring out she was just being petty, but then on my way to work one morning, I saw a pickup truck flying a Confederate flag just 3 houses down from mine. I thought it was pretty ironic that my Canadian flag had caused such a stir, while this much more controversial flag was not getting any attention from the HOA. For the next few weeks though, things were quiet. I kept my flag up, and though Karen would still give me dirty looks whenever she walked by, there were no more letters or threats of fines. I thought maybe she had finally accepted that she couldn't do anything about it. I run a small recording studio out of my home, compliant with HOA noise regulations and properly approved as a home business, so I have security cameras installed around the entire property. They are not hidden, they are clearly visible, and there are even signs stating that the property is under video surveillance. One day I opened my mailbox to find something that made my blood boil. My Canadian flag had been cut into pieces, stuffed into an envelope with a note that just said, a slur that I don't want to repeat, written in red marker. It was clearly meant to intimidate me for being a foreigner. I was furious and I immediately checked my security camera footage. And well, sure enough, the cameras had caught Karen walking up to my porch around 2 AM, taking down my flag and cutting it up with scissors she had brought with her, putting it in my mailbox, and then walking away looking smugly satisfied with herself. I could not believe someone would be this petty and vindictive. Destroying someone's property because you don't like it? And she was on the HOA board, someone who was supposed to be enforcing rules, not breaking laws. I thought about my options. I could call the police, but would they really do anything about a destroyed flag? I could confront Karen directly, but given how unreasonable she had been so far, I doubted that that would accomplish anything. In the end, I decided to go public. The HOA had a Facebook group where residents posted announcements, asked questions, and occasionally complained about issues in the neighborhood. I rarely participated, but this seemed like the perfect place to address what happened. I actually posted the video of Karen destroying my flag along with pictures of the cut-up remains and the threatening note. My post was simple. To the HOA board member who did this to my Canadian flag at 2 AM last night, I have you on video trespassing on my property and destroying my personal belongings. This behavior is not only childish, but it's illegal. I expect a full apology and compensation for my flag, or the next people to see this video will be the police. The post blew up. Within hours, dozens of neighbors had commented, almost all of them outraged at Karen's behavior. Some shared their own stories of run-ins with her over petty HOA violations. Others expressed shock that a board member would so blatantly break the law. A few even offered to buy me a new Canadian flag. Karen initially denied everything. She commented on the post claiming the video had been doctored and that she would sue for defamation. But the footage was crystal clear, there was no doubt it was her. The board president called me that evening, extremely apologetic. He assured me that they were taking this very seriously and asked if I would be willing to attend an emergency board meeting the following night to discuss the incident. And yes, I agreed. The meeting was packed, word had spread, and it seemed like half the neighborhood was there. Karen sat with the other board members, looking uncomfortable as the room filled with residents, many of whom were giving her disgusted looks. The board president opened the meeting by addressing the incident directly. He showed the video again, which I had provided to him, and then asked if Karen had anything to say. She tried to defend herself, claiming she was just enforcing the rules, and that I was creating division in the community with my foreign flag. The room erupted in disbelieving murmurs. One neighbor stood up. "It's a Canadian flag, for heaven's sake. They are our allies and neighbors, and even if you disagreed with it, you don't have the right to destroy someone else's property." Another added, "If anyone is creating division, it is board members who think they can vandalize property and intimidate residents they don't like." The board president called for order and then addressed Karen directly. "What you did was not enforcing the rules, it was breaking them, not to mention breaking the law. As board members, we are held to a higher standard. We cannot selectively enforce rules based on personal preferences, and we certainly cannot trespass and destroy property." After some discussion among the board members, the president announced that they had decided to remove Karen from her position immediately. Karen stormed out of the meeting, but not before yelling that we would all regret this and that she would see us in court. Well, nobody seemed particularly worried about her threats. After she left, several other board members apologized to me personally. One of them, a retired military veteran, even said, "I served alongside Canadians in Afghanistan. They are some of the best allies America has. You fly your flag proudly, son." The board not only replaced my flag, but also voted to clarify the rules about flag displays, explicitly stating that national flags of any country were permitted as long as they were displayed respectfully and in good condition. As for Karen, she is still in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, she gives me dirty looks when she sees me, but she has not dared to come near my property again. The Confederate flag down the street mysteriously disappeared around the same time Karen was removed from the board, which makes me think that she might have been selectively enforcing her personal version of the rules all along. And by the way, I got a new, bigger Canadian flag, which I now fly year-round instead of just on holidays. Several neighbors have expressed their support, and a few have even put up small Canadian flags of their own as a show of solidarity. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for publicly humiliating an HOA board member by posting video evidence of her destroying my flag, knowing it would likely get her kicked off the board? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Do you think OP was an a-hole here or not? I would say he was definitely an absolutely legendary person, and that Karen should not be part of the neighborhood. Also, Canadians are awesome, so screw you, Karen. Anyway, comment number 1 said, "NTA, as a veteran who served with Canadian forces, this makes my blood boil. Fly your flag proudly and maybe consider pressing charges anyway, vandalism and possibly a hate crime given the note." Comment number 2, "Everyone sucks here. Yeah, what Karen did was wrong, but, as usual the but did you really need to blast her all over Facebook? You could have just taken it to the board privately with the video evidence. Instead, you turned it into a whole neighborhood spectacle. You are all acting like children, fighting over a piece of cloth." And comment number 3, "You are the a-hole. Unpopular opinion, but this is America. If you love Canada so much, go back there. I'm so sick of people coming here and not respecting our culture." She should not have cut up your flag, but you're deliberately antagonizing your neighbors with your "look at me, I'm different" attitude. And now you're flying an even bigger flag. That's petty AF. And well guys, let me know what you think about that stupid comment. However, I would say the one not respecting American culture here was actually Karen, because in my experience, Americans are usually friendly and welcoming to other cultures, opinions, religions, etc. And Karen was obviously the opposite of that. And before we end the video, we will do something completely different, which is read a super funny review from r/entitled reviews. This is a new subreddit I recently found. So this is basically about people writing ridiculous reviews of places they have been to. The person in the review said the following. So my boyfriend and I went here with my parents while visiting in November. We all enjoyed it. We now moved here and we went back last week while we were at Wiregrass for the car show. My boyfriend ordered one slice. The total was $4.01. He gave the guy behind the counter a $10 bill. He was not carrying any change. Back in NY, he would have gotten back $6. At this place, he got back $5.99. My boyfriend will not go back there again. I know that is the correct change, but seriously? And then the owner responded, Donna, I'm really sorry that your boyfriend came to 900 Degrees, apparently a restaurant, and enjoyed the food, paid the bill, and received the correct change. How dare our employees follow their training and hand out the amount showing on the screen? We will try and do better next time. I can understand how traumatic this must have been for him, especially since he went out of his way to direct you to leave a 2-star rating review a week later. We will implement a new training program ASAP. It will include sensitivity training, I guess towards Karens, and give 5 examples of what one can do with 1 penny in a Florida suburb. Should you reconsider us, a 1-cent gift card will be set up and waiting. And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this funny subreddit in the comments, and I will see you again later today.